there because I do this a lot.
All right, I should be recording
You're
now.
on recording now. Top left button is red and blinking, so you're good to go.
Okay, thank you. So remember, everyone, that if you're just that last practitioner's question was a good one. Well, what happens if you have them on a program and they, they're breaking down, their joints are breaking down, osteoarthritis? Well, osteoarthritis is an autoimmune disease. Remember, necrotic proteins, those nuclear proteins now are leaking into the bloodstream. The body cannot tolerate proteins in the bloodstreams. That's what allergic reactions are all about. The body requires amino acids, all 22, in the bloodstream so it can select the composition of what it wants to make new cells. Now, fatty acids are involved too, but let's just keep it to the amino acids and what we're talking about. We don't get too complicated here. So, though the body says that's an antigen, that's a foreign substance. So, if you look up, which I did, and I'm just going to give you a quick definition. What is an antigen? An antigen is any substance that causes, now usually it's protein, that causes your immune system to produce antibodies against it. This means your immune system does not recognize the substance and is trying to fight it off. Now, usually, all right, an antigen may be a substance from the environment, such as chemicals, bacteria, viruses, or pollen. Remember, it is the protein, in my opinion. You could argue this with me if you wanted to, be a good conversation, but mainly it's the protein in the pollen, in the virus, in the bacteria. Remember, the main thing is with the COVID is it's a protein trying to attach to get into the cell. An antigen may also form inside the body. So we have external antigens and we have internal, you could say, and that's these these are these dead necrotic cells. So the body then forms antibodies, right? You've heard me explain this a few other times. It forms antibodies. Well, what is an antibody? Our body has a specialized search and destroy army. Antibodies are the key players in that fight. Now remember, just one little side note. If you don't have enough calcium, if you don't have enough blood serum calcium, ionizable calcium, it cannot awaken this process. So just remember, phagocytosis is awakened by the mineral calcium. So just as a side note. Antibodies are specialized Y-shaped proteins that bind like a lock and key to the body's foreign invaders, antigens, whether they are viruses, bacteria, fungi, or parasites. They are the search battalion of the immune system's search and destroy system, tasked with finding an enemy and marking it for destruction. So the antibodies will trigger different immune cells, either to wrap it and carry it out or just kill it right on the spot and then take it out. And those are all taken out into the lymphatic system. If you're wondering, where the heck do they go? They're released from the cell and they go out and hunt. When antibodies find their target, they bind to it, which then triggers a cascade of actions that vanquish the invader. Antibodies are so-called adaptive immune the arm of the immune system that learns to recognize and eliminate specific pathogens. This recognition piece is why we have autoimmune disease. So it will clean up what's in the blood, but then this recognition aspect to antibodies says, who started this? Where is the source of this leakage into this, of necrotic tissue into the bloodstream? Then the immune system starts attacking that tissue. In the case of osteoarthritis, it is now recognized since 2004 when Mark gave a lecture, which you can get his whole lecture on protomorphogens. It is fabulous on Saline River Press. If you don't have that, that's really, ask for it for Christmas. I don't even know how much it is. It's so worth it. He gave it, I was there in Salt Lake City, 2004. He explains all of this. But now, an osteoarthritis is now considered an autoimmune disease. So getting back to that practitioner's question, which was very good. Say you've got them on 4 or 5 things, and you're like, but they have this osteoarthritis pattern. And you're saying to yourself, I can only give them one more product. When you look at my book, you can see that they are in order of importance. So the priority is you've got to remove the burden off whatever the joint is. If it's knees, hips, shoulders, you've got to remove the burden. And the only way to do that, now you've got all these chondroitin sulfite products and, you know, on the market. It does not help people that much. It may relieve a little stress because you have to understand what is causing it. You have to get rid of the cause. You have to remove that burden so that that organ can recuperate. Ostrophin PMG, in this case, does not heal the joint. It simply removes the immune assault. That's all it does. Now, there is some discussion now that, well, they help to rebuild. No, you have to give the body the other materials to rebuild. So, and I'm going to go through those. So, but unless you fully understand the protomorphogen, and in my book, there's a whole article. Dr. Lee explains protomorphogens. It's a long article, and you're not going to get it the first time. You're going to have to read it through 10 times to finally get it. And I certainly can help you clarify that as well. You see, this is why Dr. Lee said the protomorphogens are the fountain of youth, or youths. Because when you're constantly removing the burden throughout the body, then you are giving the body the opportunity to restore, find balance, and maintain. Without this, the body will continue to break down. And even if you're giving them the substance that helps to rebuild, you still have this David and Goliath going on. And Goliath is that autoimmune response, which is usually at the end stage. So what is osteoarthritis then? Well, it's a joint, they say disease, it's a joint condition where there is a breakdown of joint cartilage. So what I'm attempting to do when I go deeper into understanding conditions and the nutritional application is you have to first know what tissue is breaking down, and then what nutrient applies to that tissue. And that's all that I'm doing with this. It's not that complex. But most, especially in reductionism, they're just, and listen, you know, some of it does do some good, but they're just throwing mud against the wall unless you understand what you're working with. So here it is. I don't know where I got Wikipedia. As the first sentence tells you what your target of restorative nutrients are. The joint disease that results from the breakdown of joint cartilage. Now, that covers a lot, you know, oh, let me get to cartilage in a second. So I want to do this in an organized way. And of course, you can have, how many people in the United States have osteoarthritis as of, I don't know when this was researched? 50 million people are affected. It says 30 to 53 million, but this was done years ago. So I would say 50 million a year have osteoarthritis. And it is always in those 60 years or older. I mean, unless you've got an athlete who would, you know, damage their bodies, their knees, their hips. 10% are males, 18% are females. So those are just, you know, statistics you can look up. But, and what does it affect? You know, usually it's just mainly joints only, not internal organs. That's a different, and I'll get into that at some other point in my lecture here. But this is specifically focused on the joints. So this is a condition that is, again, happens over time. And then once it gets going, it is hard to slow it down and stop it. So there's more knee replacements done than hip replacements at this point. Now they're doing ankle replacements, shoulder replacements, and on and on. And these are very dangerous surgeries, number one. And of course, the body is never the same. People do all right with these. But if we can prevent this, now remember what I said on Tuesday when I talked to you about autoimmune. I mean, when I talked to you about osteoporosis and osteopenia. Primarily when a human being is born from 0 to 7 years. Now these cycles merge into each other. But the first 7 years of life mainly is the human being adapting to this outer world. So the first 7 years, if I could say there's a focus, it's on human immunity, of getting used to handling everything in the outer world. From 7 to 14 is, let's see, I was thinking this out in my head last night, is the development of the hormonal system. Okay? And what do we say? Usually children enter puberty somewhere between 12 and 16, somewhere in there. So that's, now these, as I say, these morph from one cycle to the other. And it doesn't mean that the immune system then is fully developed and you don't have to think about that again. No, the immune system plays a huge part in the development of hormonal and endocrine function, of course. And then 14 to 28, right? I mean, 14 to 21, 14 to 21 is the development of the musculoskeletal system. So, and then you could say, well, what about 21 to 28? That is the solidifying years of all three of these areas of the body. And by the time a human being is 30 years old, they pretty much have what they have. The next 30 years is maintaining and sustaining that. So from 30 to 60, say, is the maintenance of that. The next 30 years, which is what I want to get to here, from 60 to 90, most people don't live beyond 90. If they do, God bless them, it's great, is not just sustaining, it's dealing with the breakdown, the constant breakdown of those systems. So these cycles, to me, are very specific. And that's why they say right here, among those over 60 years old, it's mainly 10% of males and 18% of females are affected. So, and what does osteoarthritis commonly affect? Well, we said hands, feet, spine. Spine is big, everyone. Weight-bearing joints, hips, knees, shoulders, wrists. And what are some of the causes? Well, we know that injury. We know that malnutrition is actually the beginning of any cascade related to the joints. Excessive weight, and as I say, injury, and not enough strengthening of the muscles. So if you have weak muscles, that puts a lot of stress on your joint. That's why, what do we call it? Weight-bearing exercises to keep your joints healthy. And you know what else they said here that I didn't think of? Impairment of peripheral nerves, leading to sudden or uncoordinated movements. I never thought of that. But here again, here's the nervous system. Here is where we tie in the heart and nervous system with everything. Here it is. And the other factor that they said here in cause is changes in sex hormones. And this is why you noticed that when I read, you may have noticed, that only 10% of males have osteoarthritis. 18, say 20% of females get osteoarthritis. That's because the changes in their hormones are much more dramatic than the changes in the male hormone overall. Isn't that interesting? So, but let's return. I want to look at with you, which ties in with the definition of this cartilage factor, right? It's a breakdown of joint cartilage. Let's never forget that in our conversation here. So, what is joint cartilage made of? All right, so if we're going to give nutrition for cartilage, what is it? So, cartilage is made up of, it's 10% aggrecan. It's AGGRECAN, aggregans, and I'll get into that. The joints are 75% water. You think hydration is important to maintain healthy joints and healthy cartilage? And it's a mixture of collagen fibers, which we looked at in relationship to bone and other constituents. And I want to touch on this water and fluid balance in the joints and related to this cartilage piece. When you stand up or walk, the weight on your body is supported by cartilaginous ends of the long bones. In this state, your weight compresses the cartilage, literally squeezing the water out until the force produced by the osmotic swelling is equal to the compressive force generated by your weight. This is why obese people have trouble with what? Ankles, hips, and to some degree their spine, but mainly ankles and hips, knees, excuse me, ankles, hips, knees and hips. But I wanted to mention to you to write into your notes here that the osmotic transfer of fluids is regulated by carbamide. So from a nutritional standpoint, anybody with osteoarthritis, if you want to enhance this osmotic transfer of fluid, you would use the product AC carbamide. Now, I didn't put that in there because this is advanced. So I wanted to keep the protocol as simple as possible. But we need to go deeper so you understand all of the factors, because you could use this protocol and say, Joe, they're not doing well. Well, what are we missing? And here's one of the factors. And that would be 3 twice a day, by the way. Now, this is very specific, and I was glad that I happened to find this because it helped me think things through as well. So, and I want to read to you too about cartilage. Cartilage is one of the proteins. Remember all 22 amino acids. You cannot make cartilage. You can't make collagen without those 22 amino acids. This is how important proteins are. This is how important calcifood powder is. Do you see it? Now, we looked at it in another way for osteoporosis and osteopenia, but you've got to have this product. Because unless you get all 22 amino acids, the hunter-gatherer person ate, that's all they ate all day long. If they found food, was the proteins were partially cooked. They ate a lot of raw proteins, which we're petrified of in this day and age. The indigenous people did not overcook their food. They didn't eat a lot of food without life, proteins without any life, with half a third of the amino acids missing. So collagen is one of the proteins found in most connective tissues, including cartilage, bone, and skin. Gelatin is a form of collagen commonly used in foods. So here, the reason I read this to you is in the back of my book, Bernard Jensen, if you go on his website, he has a gelatin or an organic gelatin a product that if you wanted to add something, again, here is what you would add in, okay? Now, there are a lot of gelatin products on the market, but you have to be careful with any bovine substances that they're not too, they haven't been altered in too many ways. And as far as I know, to this day, one of you can look it up while I'm talking to see if they still have that. But it's in my book, and you can look it up on his website. Now, I think I put in my book another one that I found from Canada that I had been using before a practitioner told me about Dr. Jensen's. So I wanted to go over this part of cartilage that this substance that's called aggregans. Now, I am not one, I like to keep it simple in my mind. I don't like to get too much into the weeds about biochemistry, but we have to understand these aggregants. It's only 10%. Granted, there are the other collagen fibers, of course, but we have to understand because this is so vital, and you'll see why. Aggregan, the most abundant proteoglycan in cartilage, is a complex macromolecule consisting of multi-domain central protein backbone dechlorinated with numerous chondroitin sulfate and keratin sulfate. So what did I want to read though? Hold on one second here. Here it is. Here is what I wanted to read. Aggregan is a major in articular cartilage, protoglycan in articular cartilage. This molecule is important in the proper functioning of articular cartilage because it provides a hydrated gel structure. So this is why I wanted to share this with you, because unless you give a person that is going down the river with osteoarthritis support to this 10% factor, then you're going to be missing a huge part. Now, that support would mainly be, again, in the calcifood. Okay, so because you are literally, when you're taking calcifood, you are taking this aggregan. You're taking that into your body because they grind up the joints. It's the whole bone and the joints, the spine, as I read to you on Tuesday on calcifood. And if any of you didn't get that I read on Tuesday, just send me an email and just put calcifood, and I'll send you that article from Dr. Lee. So the other thing that I want to go with has to do with hydration, and talk to you a little about that. And this is from Harvard, by the way. Drinking enough water each day is critical for many reasons: to regulate body temperature, keep joints lubricated. Most of us, I didn't think of this, that water helps my joints stay lubricated, just for this very reason that I've been teaching you. Because of this osmotic fluid transfer when you get out of bed and step on the floor, go for a walk, go for a run, lift weights. Keeps joints lubricated, prevent infections. Wouldn't think of water preventing infections. Deliver nutrients to cells and keep organs functioning properly. Just think of that sentence, a relationship to water. And think of how many people are good water drinkers, including ourselves maybe. But let me keep going. Being well hydrated also improves sleep quality, cognition, and mood. Now, you're probably saying to me, Joe, this is ridiculous. I didn't know all of this. Well, I didn't either. I'm with you. Think of how many people don't sleep well. They're grouchy all day. You know, they can't remember where they placed their keys. Water. Isn't it amazing? The human body and nutrition for the body is so simple when you get right down to it, isn't it? Experts recommend drinking roughly 11 cups, that's 88 ounces per day, for the average woman and 16 for men. That's a lot of water. Now, they're saying you could get that through coffee and tea. You can get it through some fruits. But the doctor, Walter Willett, who wrote this, Willett said that Americans are, this is very important, are conditioned to expect high levels of sweeteners in everything. You might say we are malhydrated. It's a good word, because we drink so much soda, fruit juice, and other sugar-sweetened beverages. And by that, I mean we drink beverages that harm our health. Good for you, Dr. Willett. Amen. Even energy drinks and vitamin waters, most are loaded with sugar and not worth the use. So there you go. He's literally saying that you got to just drink water. What is wrong with just water? So we don't always think of it that way, do we? The other last point I wanted to make about this has to do with, if I can find it here. One of the joint therapies that I have found very effective is, it used to be called Rooster Comb injections, because at the tail end of osteoarthritis, before they want to do hip and knee surgery, it's very painful and uncomfortable for clients. And so it's important that that we have other alternatives to suggest to them. Now, you can use things that help with microcirculation. One of the things you should put in here about lifestyle that I didn't put in is the Beamer. Now, I'm going to have someone come on and teach us next week, if I can get a hold of them, about what the Beamer does, because it increases the microcirculation, which helps many parts of the body, but especially the joints. So that's very important. And then, of course, the far infrared sauna. Always, if you want to increase microcirculation, you have to use far infrared saunas. Even one a week will do that. But just to return for a minute about these injections, I've had many clients that they don't use Rooster Comb now. It's a synthetic substance. But what it does, they inject it into the joint, and it lasts 6 months to a year. It keeps them out of pain while we have a chance to help that body to rebuild that joint. So there was something else that I wanted to read to you. Maybe I didn't have it here. So that's important too. And let me just, I wanted to just, I should have done this at the beginning, but so I get it on the recording, and then I'll shift this around when I'm writing this all out for you. I wanted to just go about, talk to you a little bit about when we talk about joints. A joint is the connection made between bones in the body which link the skeletal system into a functional whole. They are constructed to allow for different degrees and types of movement. Some joints, such as knees, elbow, and shoulders, are self-lubricating, almost frictionless. So I want to touch on that. Let me just read the rest first. And are able to withstand compression and maintain heavy loads while still exuding smooth and precise movements. Other joints, such as sutures between bones of the skull, permit very little movement only during birth in order to protect the brain and sense organs. This is very important to remember because when you're working with someone that has osteoarthritis and they say to you, well, I'm also going into dementia, into Alzheimer's, just remember that when we're working with nutrition, for one thing, it's affecting other things that we don't realize. It's affecting their brain. And this is where, if you write in your notes that these joints are in the skull as well, and cranial sacral work is really key. If you get someone that's deteriorating in their knees, and their brains are deteriorating. The connection between a tooth and the jawbone is also called a joint. I wonder if we ever thought of that. People with decline in their teeth and their jawbone. And all of these now implants that they're putting in, that seems to me like such an imposition, and they cost a fortune. This is why we got to keep our bodies in those last 30 years of life. It's a constant pushback using nutrition. And again, what is the product? Ostrophin calcifood. Now, we discussed this on Tuesday. Biost is a product you think of for teeth, which is fine. But Ostrophin and Biost are identical. Ostrophin has 4 milligrams of manganese, and Biost has 10 milligrams. That's the difference. Other than that, they're identical products. Jawbone called the jawbone is also called a joint and is described as a fibrous joint. Here you're getting back to that collagen, to the cartilage, I mean, to the collagen cartilage rebuilding, yes. And so that was the other piece that I wanted to say about the jawbone. Let me see if there was anything else. Now, remember when we work with osteoarthritis and the joint itself, there are other implications here. And what is the joint made up of? Bone, muscle, synovium, cartilage, and ligaments, and tendons, of course. But I wanted to finish my little overview here of this condition and the technical part of it by talking about synovium. Synovial fluid. Remember that I talked earlier about the joints lubricating themselves. They're hydrated, but there's also a lubricant in there called synovial fluid, and that's more in your moving joints. Your fingers, your wrists, your elbows, your shoulders, your knees, your hips, and your spine. One of the products I want you to write in for synovial fluid and the maintenance of that balance in that fluid is actually the product called OrChecks. So OrChecks contains, people think that OrChecks has male hormone in it. It doesn't. We couldn't sell the product. People think that OrChecks is mainly a source, you can write this down, of the enzyme hyaluronidase, which is known as the enzyme that spreads. It's the spreading factor. When a person loses that motility in their joint, a good case is bursitis, and we could look at that protocol at some point. That synovial fluid is either dehydrated or it's all bound up. So when you use that enzyme hyaluronidase, that's the enzyme known as the enzyme that contains the spreading factor, So you're freeing that. If you free up that synovial fluid, you free up the joint. Now, in the case of, a shoulder problem, bursitis, you've got to reduce the inflammation too. And that's a different conversation because it relates to acid-alkaline balance. But just remember, write in your notes that when people have osteoarthritis, OrChecks may help them tremendously. And as chiropractors, as you start adjusting the elderly, what's the first thing you notice? Oh, they're becoming very arthritic. And the movement of their spine gets more and more tight and restricted. Yes, that could be a ligament problem, but it's also a synovial fluid issue. And OrChecks 3 twice a day can help with that. So those are the products that really are really outside of what I put in here. But just to finish here, because I know we're getting on here, is I went over the Ostrophen, the calcifood, I can send you that. And remember that certainly, glucosamine sulfate helps with that joint. It decreases that surface tension in the joint on the surface where the joint hits the joint. And that's why this is a good product. But mainly the other thing that I had read is with joints is you've got ligaments and tendons. And here is where the mineral manganese comes in. Very important. And so either one of these also really helps with this. And then I spoke at length on Cataplex C, not ascorbic acid. You cannot help clear osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, or any collagen condition wherever it is with ascorbic acid. You have to have the full vitamin C complement. Because as I said on Tuesday, it literally helps with the tightening those protein bonds. It literally knits them tighter together, just like you're knitting a sweater. And if you don't pull that together tightly, and that's what natural vitamin C does, is it knits that collagen matrix, that cartilage factor tighter together. So I went over that on Tuesday. And now I want to end with Gotu-Kola, because Gotu-Kola in relationship to collagen production, the maintenance of collagen and cartilage is so key. And I'm going to read you some things that may surprise you. Gotu-Kola is known as, now remember, Gotu-Kola complex, if you're not going to use the liquid, Gotu-Kola complex has ginkgo, grapeseed, and Gotu-Kola, and which is fine, 2 twice a day. If you want to use the tablets, the liquid would be 1 teaspoon a day. Note, 1 teaspoon, which is 5 mils, twice a day. And you should write that in because I should have written that in there too. So 5 mils is 1 teaspoon. So 2 teaspoons a day. And I've shared with you over the years, I had when I went through my cancer, in fact, they thought the cancer had gone into my bones. My low back was so bad. And I started reading about Gotu Kola, and to this day, I take it. I take a teaspoon a day of the liquid. It's in a blend that I use for my brain blend, because I'm going to read to you what it does for the brain as well. And my brain blend is in the book. It's Bacopa, Ginkgo, and Gotu Kola. Those 3 liquids blended up. It's in the back of my book. But, you know, I had younger grandchildren then. I could not carry them on my back. I could not lift them. I couldn't do any physical work. That's why they had thought that the cancer had gone into my bones, bone marrow. But it didn't. It hadn't when they checked it. Thank God. But it was, and I was taking a ton of calcium food, believe me, and all these other products. But when I added the Gotu Kola, it changed, and my back has never gone out since. It's never been bad since. Took about 6 months, but Gotu Kola, I'm telling you, is amazing. So it is known as the herb of longevity. Gotu Kola is a staple in traditional Chinese, Indonesian, and Ayurvedic medicine. Practitioners claim the medicinal plant has the power to boost brain power, heal skin issues, and promote liver and kidney health. Why? Because it is a collagen supporting herb. So think of it, Alzheimer's, just think of it with the brain. Here's another. What if there was a single plant that could help you concentrate at work, reduce post-workout joint pain, minimize varicose veins? Remember, collagen, collagen, collagen. And in this case, with osteoarthritis, cartilage. And give you glowing, calm skin. Turns out that this powerful little herb isn't just the stuff of a healthy gal's dreams. It actually exists. And you're about to start hearing its name, Gotu Kola. A lot more often, practitioners of Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine have revered the plant, also known as Centella asiatica, Indian pennywort, or tiger grass, for thousands of years. But it's only now beginning to infiltrate the Western wellness world. The list of Gotu Kola's healing properties is impressively long. For one thing, it's got some pretty profound mental health benefits when consumed orally. Studies show that Gotu Kola promotes cerebral circulation, which helps focus memory, concentration, and it also has a sedating quality. So it's really helping in calming the mind. I think we need that right now in our country. Gotu Kola is also, I didn't know this, anti-inflammatory. It promotes healthy veins and capillaries. It has specific affinity for vasculature. So it can really help folks that have varicose veins, bringing down inflammation. But perhaps its most well-known superpower pertains to the skin. It modulates the production of collagen. Wow. So we have the Cataplex C, which is going to take that collagen and compress it into even a tighter junction, right? Tighter matrix. And then we have this that helps with the production of collagen. Unlike the buzzy collagen supplements that come from animals and fish, it's suitable for vegans. All right. I think, oh, and I want to read this, yeah. What I really love about Gotu Kola is that it protects our existing collagen. This is so important. And this is how MediHerb teaches it literally prevents scar tissue. It keeps the collagen you have soft. So remember that. And that's what they're saying here. Protects the existing collagen, helps create the building blocks of new collagen. Wow. She adds, it's also got, which I didn't know, antimicrobial properties, which means it's appropriate for acne-prone skin. So enough said about that. Cognitive function, skin function. Remember, this was the main herb used for leprosy. Do you know how bad leprosy was at the time of Jesus, 2,000 years ago? It was a plague. Talk about plagues. It was a bacterial infection that affected the skin, mucous membranes in the eyes, up in the nose, the nerves. It destroyed everything. It was a bacterial infection. Gotu Kola was the main thing that they used all those years. So just to finish, and I highly recommend, I wanted to do, when I made this protocol, I wanted to really put it in my top 4, but you just couldn't really do it. The combination to me, I mean, these are all so important, but of Calcifood and Gotu Kola together, I can't say enough about it for discs and spinal issues. I can't say enough about it.
Joseph?
Yes.
We have one thing in the chat. Standard Process has a product called Ostroplex, specifically for osteoarthritis. What do you think? Ostroplex.
Yes. I have used them and I have never found them effective. I have to be honest with you. I'm always honest with you. I guess it's a combination product. And where's my book? Hold on one second. So formulas that they made after Lee died, they're fine. But again, remember everyone, unless you have the clinical dose, you're not going to get the clinical outcome. You're just not. And you would have to take of Ostroplex, let me just get it for you here. It's just, they're not big selling products because they're just not, oh, they don't break it down. Oh, let me see. Hold on one second. Oh, here it is. Ostroplex. Okay. In Ostroplex, there's 1, 2, 3, there's 5 products. Now, as far as a maintenance, maybe later on, maybe. And it's got Cal-Ammo for acidifying the joint, Cataplex G, Ostrophin, only 20% Ostrophin. You're never going to do it with that. It's got some Phosfood and Beta-Col. So it's just, listen, if you get results with it, let me know. I have never gotten results with it. So, and not to the satisfaction of my clients, at least. And so I just got to be honest about that. Now, the other last factor, of course, with and the reason I put them in there as a priority of a product has to do with pain. Of course, Boswellia complex. Now remember, that has Boswellia, it has turmeric, and it has, what's the other herb in there? It's a great product for pain when they're at that point. And of course, pain is really the release of a toxin called guanidine. And we know that chlorophyll, I sent you all that recording of that osteopath in Pueblo, Colorado, who uses it and has used it. I think he's semi-retired now, but he used it in his practice for decades, effectively. Chlorophyll pearls. Because chlorophyll neutralizes that toxin given off by inflammation, which creates pain. So it's a great, either one of those or both of them. But in that is for the final outcome, as I say, with this breakdown and pain, to help people until we get the rebuilding done with them. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for hanging in there with me. Obviously, these sessions, maybe I'll try not to take as long, but I think going into deeper, you understand why I created the protocols that I did. Because, as I say, we have to know what tissue is breaking down and what nutrients apply to that tissue. Once we do that, then we're on the road. Now, something like osteoarthritis, that's a rest of your life condition that individual will have to work with. That's the 60 to 90. This will be constant. That will have to become a priority in your protocol. At least Ostrophin and Calcifood. You could always rotate Calcifood with Coca-Cola. You could do that too. So there's ways of doing this, and without, again, putting everybody on everything, you know. So any questions? I know we're way over, but I'm happy to stay on if you want to stay on.
Joseph, it's Lynn. I don't have a question as I do in addition, because this is my first note on my osteoarthritis page under lifestyle recommendations, because you and I spoke about it, is that people should do the 10-day inflammation 1 time a quarter.
Oh, good. Write that in your notes.
Year.
Yes, very good. Yes. Yep. Did everyone get that? Yep. 10-day inflammation. And they can do that every 3 months. It's just 10 days where you're getting rid of all those inflammatory foods, and you're really giving the body a chance to recalibrate. It brings down the pain level. So that, thank you, Lynn. Yeah, 10-day inflammatory, yes. Inflammation, yeah. Great. Anything else I left out?
No, that was just my one note to self on that.
No,
page
that's
from
great. That's
our
great.
conversation. Yep. So I wanted to share it with
that's
everyone.
why, yeah, when we get into these protocols, then we can add other things in that I might have missed for us. You know, this isn't something, say your client buys this book, they don't need to look at all those other things. Those are for us to have to go deeper into our understanding and application of any condition. So, well, thank you all very much. And I will talk with you again next Tuesday. And maybe I'll continue this theme unless someone has a protocol that's really up for them that they want me to review. I'll work on disc issues and ligaments. Yeah. Go ahead, Monica. Did someone come in? Oh. Okay. Thank you all.
So much.
Okay. Blessings to you, and I'll talk to you next Tuesday. Yes.